Hello, this is Taylor Elwood, your mad scientist and magical experimenter at magicalexperiments.com, and today we're going to continue on with the series about how I experiment with magic with the case study that I'm using about developing the temporal consecration prayer. However, before we do that, I want to show you the newest book from Amanian Press. It's not a book I've written, but it's called What is an Altar by Rowan Moss, and it's illustrated by T.S. Lamb, and it's the first book in our Pagan Children series. So if you are a pagan family, you have little kids or whatnot, please check out the link below where you can actually buy a copy of the book. I highly recommend it, and it is just absolutely awesome. I mean, look at this. Isn't that cool? So anyway, or if you know someone who has a pagan family, yeah. Anyway, so let's get to the topic at hand. Um, last week, I walked you through why it was important to do research. This week, we're going to talk about initial contact protocol. So when I'm working with spirits, I go through an initial contact protocol that I have in place. And what that really involves is that I essentially do an invocation of the spirit, in this case, each of the archangels. And the reason I do that is because I think it's important to establish that initial connection, and it's kind of a get to know you session between myself and the archangel. It's also, if you will, it's the latter part of the research stage of this particular process. I've done the research, I've looked up what people have said about the archangels, and now it's time to see what the archangels have to say for themselves and find out what kind of information they have. And so what I will do is do a process where basically I go into a meditative trance and I start saying the name of the entity in my mind. And then I will start to say the name louder and louder and louder until I feel a connection occur. I want to note a couple things here, and I've talked about this process before, that really this is a process where it's not just you saying the name of an angel, so it's not me just saying Mikhail, Mikhail, Mikhail. It's about me saying the name of the angel, yes, out loud, but also saying it internally. It's about preparing myself internally to receive the connection, as well as reaching out and actually connecting to the archangel or demon or whatever else you're going to connect with. So I think that's really important. Now, once that connection's made, I basically am at that stage introducing myself and telling them what the purpose of the working is. In this case, what I did in this case is I chose to do, for each day I chose to invoke one of the archangels. And so I invoked the 4 primary archangels from the spatial consecration prayer, and then I invoked the 3 archangels from what will become the temporal consecration prayer. Now you might say, well, Taylor, why did you choose to work with the 4 archangels of the spatial consecration prayer? You already got that information. Why do you need to go do that? Well, I'll tell you why. In my opinion, I am adding something on to this particular process. And so I want to make sure that those archangels know that. And I want to do it in a manner where it's respectful to them, and it's kind of saying, hey, I'm going to be doing something here. I'm going to be changing this particular working that I've been handed down. And you're part of that, and so I want to let you guys know, and I want to make sure I have your blessing. Now, I know some people wouldn't necessarily go ahead and do that, but I'm a firm believer in collaborative workings with any and everything, and that includes collaborative workings with archangels. It doesn't hurt you to be polite and nice. In fact, there's a lot of truth to the saying that you attract more with honey than you do with vinegar, right? So that's why I did it. I wanted to kind of get their blessing. The next part of this particular experiment is going to be a continuation of that process, but it's going to serve it's going to serve another purpose as well, which I'll get into next week. So I did that. I kind of established my credentials with the first 4 archangels, and they're like, okay, that's fine. Go ahead and do what you want to do. and then I contacted the other 3 archangels. And in each case, my purpose was, yes, to get their permission, but also to get some information from them. I wanted to get a sense of, you know, do these, like in the case of the 4 primary archangels, do these correspondences really match up with you? And yes, they did. So great. And with the other 3, it's what kind of correspondences should I associate with you? Are there any particular images that I should associate with you? And so what I did is I got those. And I actually got images from the primary 4 archangels as well. So I actually got the relevant images and things like that. And the reason why the images are important is because I'm actually going to be doing paintings. And again, I'm going to cover this in next week's call or video in more depth. But I'm going to be doing paintings as part of an offering, and it's going to serve another purpose, which again I'll explain next week. So, getting back to the matter at hand, what I did is I got that information from them, put it down into my notebook, and there we are. Now, for purposes of doing this kind of work, if you wanted to do if you wanted to set something up like this, you might ask me, well, you know, it sounds like you're just using the name to invoke them. Are you using any images, like any sigils or anything like that? And the answer is, in this case, no. I could, but I opted not to. In the case of working with demons, I have sometimes memorized their sigil and then visualized it as I've been calling the name of the demon. Why didn't I do it in this case with the archangels? Because obviously there are sigils for the archangels. You know, honestly, it was just an experiment to see what would happen if I didn't. I just wanted to see what would happen if I did or didn't. And if it hadn't worked, then I would have tried it with the actual sigil and seen what happened. But in this case, it did work. So there you go. You know, I'm just going to say here too that, you know, just because this process works for me doesn't automatically mean it'll work for you. You've got to figure out what works for you, so you can give it a try and see what happens, and if it doesn't work for you, maybe you need to figure out what actually will. And the reason for that is because magic is highly personalized, so it's important to remember that. Okay, so that's it for this week. Next week we're going to go into the offering aspect of this particular experiment. I might add that this is just an example case study. This is not how I approach all of my experiments. This is just an example that I am showing you in this particular case of how I do this type of work. So please remember that. If you have comments, feel free to leave them below, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please click on the T. And hey, if you like this video, could you do me a favor and actually click on Become My Patron, which is in the description. I do these videos each week and I love doing them, but if you become my patron, it actually helps me to it helps me out. It helps me to fund these videos. Not only that, but you get access to all the other goodies, all the other things that I'm doing if you become my patron. You get a chance to get early access to my writing of articles. You get a chance to see the first drafts of my books and other things. So please consider clicking on the link, Become a Patron. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.